Now we start off the bulletin with an update on the wave of industrial action that has now hit the health sector in Machakos County. The strike by health workers there entered its third day today. The Health Workers Union is currently in a meeting with the Machakos County government officials in a bid to end the strike that has paralyzed operations at the Machakos Level 5 hospital. Elsewhere in Murang'a, the county government has ruled out any possibility of employing striking health and pensionable basis.
It has been over 48 hours. The health workers are protesting the non-remittance of statutory and non-statutory deductions by the county government to SACCOs.
And we expect the county government to take this matter with the seriousness it deserves, solve it once and for all.
To try and end the strike, officials from the county government led by the Machakos County Labour Executive this morning began talks with the health workers' representatives. The workers have indicated they are ready to go back to work once their outstanding statutory deductions are remitted to their SACCOs. In Murang'a, where a section of health workers are on strike, the Public Service Executive has said the county does not have funds to employ the striking workers.
As a county government, we appreciate the good work they have been performing. However, due to the budgetary constraints, the county government is unable to regularize their salary at this point in time. The county government would like to inform all the Murang'a County residents that despite the absence of the ESP workers' health services have remained uninterrupted.
The workers who have been on strike for over 3 weeks are accusing the Murang'a County government of changing their terms of service by offering 6-month contracts instead of 3-year contracts on pensionable basis. Rita Tinina, KTN.
From matters health, we go into education, and as the countrywide teachers' strike enters the second week, Uasin Gishu County Governor Jackson Mandago has reiterated that teachers need to demand only what the government can afford to pay them. He said that the officials of the Kenyan National Union of Teachers and the Kenyan Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers need to negotiate with the government on their demands instead of boycotting class. Mandago added that teachers need to embrace dialogue with the government to reach an amicable solution to the stalemate that has paralyzed learning in the country. The governor was speaking in Kaptagat, Uasin Gishu County, when he launched a road construction program.
And I support teachers for ongezeo mshahara, but reasonable increase. Don't ask for what we don't have. Well, what also who are reasonable. Also saying, the more salary you want, we assign performance contract. In fact, we should say TSC should make a limit. You can be promoted kuwa lazy after 3 years, ukifika mahali fulani, performance contract. You cannot run away from the government. You are not going to manufacture another government.
Let's just cross borders a bit now, and at least 143 members of Boko Haram were killed on Monday after an attempt to attack a military base in Cameroon. Confirming the incident, the Cameroonian army said the rest of the members of the group who survived the incident were pushed back. Here is that story. In a heavy gunfire exchange between Nigeria's Boko Haram militia group and the Cameroonian army, residents of Kolofata, a small northern town of Cameroon, fled for safety. Fears that Boko Haram had threatened to go beyond its Nigerian borders had come true, but the Cameroonian army would not take the threats lightly. They confirmed to having killed 143 members of the Islamist group during the crossfire, losing 1 Cameroonian soldier in the process. Boko Haram is said to have been targeting the military base in the town. Meanwhile, back in Nigeria, the world continues to react to news that Boko Haram might have conducted one of its deadliest massacres yet, with reports that at least 2,000 people might have been killed when the group razed down Baga town. Storming the town with explosive and assault rifles, authorities say the number of those dead remains unclear, as bodies are said to be still lying in the bushes. Majority of those affected were mothers, children,
and the elderly who are unable to run for their lives. In its 5-year existence, at least 10,000 people have died and over 1 million displaced.
And back home, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. has recorded a statement after the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, ordered a probe into alleged tampering of samples of the late Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo. Family members of the late senator had filed a complaint with the DPP insisting that samples that were sent to London for further testing had been tampered with.
I have faith that we will be able to determine, one, the chain of custody. I have faith that we'll be able to determine who sealed those samples. I have faith that we'll be able to determine the manner in which those samples were ferried and how those samples arrived either unsealed or tampered with. Because as a family, we still do not know the references of tampered with or unsealed. We would like to know the details. The samples we are referring to were the samples of his stomach, his liver, his pancreas, his brain, his muscles, etc. Those are the samples I'm referring to. I strongly believe that there was a cover-up and interference, and the sole purpose of attempting to interfere with my father's samples is so that we do not get a conclusive finding of the cause of death, because remember I have stated that the chief government pathologist had confirmed that in fact, because of technical challenges in the country, they could not get what is called as detailed toxicology reports. So the persons who have interfered with my father's samples are determined to ensure that we never quite get to the actual cause of the substance that caused him to die.
Well, the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is meeting county commissioners from all 47 counties and plus regional coordinators. The meeting will be to discuss security challenges and threats that must be tackled. Our reporter Patrick Kamimo is currently attending that meeting, and of course we'll be able to know what comes out of it and whether Nkaiseri will be able to address the tug of war that we have seen recently between the county commissioners and the governors. Elsewhere, Kisumu Member of Parliament Alago Oluoch is set to be discharged from the Aga Khan Hospital this afternoon. Oluoch was rushed to the hospital on Friday after he fell unconscious in his home in Riat, Kisumu County. Speaking during a visit to the hospital, CORD Co-Principal and Senate Minority Leader Moses Wetangula said that as much as the opposition side wants to have dialogue with the government, they are not ready to drop the referendum calls as called for by some of the Jubilee leaders. He also expressed his dissatisfaction with the newly appointed IEBC CEO Ezra Simiyu.
His doctors tell us he has fully recovered, as it were, and he will be discharged from hospital this afternoon to go back to join his family. We as CORD have an agenda, have a vision, have a plan for this country, and is not predicated on a dialogue with Jubilee. Dialogue with Jubilee has been predicated on the premise that we want certain issues of this country which are too important to be left to one coalition or one side of the country to be dealt with by all Kenyans. Matters that can be addressed regardless of our position in politics ought to be done that way. But the simplistic approach and the simplistic thinking that we are seeing now confirms our worst fears that these are not people to trust.
From that, let's just get a bit into farming, and the potato packaging policy has officially been implemented in Elgeyo Marakwet County. The law limits packaging of food products to maximum of 50 kilos per bag. Speaking while launching the ban in Flax Market, Governor for Elgeyo Marakwet County Alex Tolgos asked farmers transporters and traders to conform and follow the laid regulations, or those who disregarded the standardized packaging of food products will pay a fine of 500,000 shillings or face a 1-year jail term sentence. This, he says, will help farmers reap maximum profits from their produce and avoid exploitation.
So I'm happy this morning because all the stakeholders in this market have agreed that they are going forward. They are going to package their produce in 50 kilos. We've seen the traders also comment that they are happy for the packaging because it will be even easier for them in handling the potatoes and other produce.
From Elgeyo to Meru County, where police in Tigania East, Meru County have launched investigations to enable the arrest of herders who escaped, leaving over 1,200 cattle grazing on food crops. According to Tigania East OCPD Charles Koskei, area police had received several complaints from farmers in parts of Tigania East and Tigania West. In these two areas, tracts of farm crops had been eaten up by cattle. The 1,200 animals that include cows, sheep, goats and donkeys have since been taken possession of by the police. The OCPD said that following rainfall failure in the region, the area is experiencing shortage of pasture and water, leading to increased movement of cattle farming in the area. Mudara MCA Andrew Kobia condemned the incidents and called for prosecution of those behind the destruction of property. And now let's move to Wings to Fly. And it was a joyous moment for parents and bright students from poor backgrounds in Nakuru County after they received scholarships from Equity Bank. Wings to Fly program, a total of 120 needy students within the county who attained 350 marks and above in last year's KCPE exams, received the scholarships. The needy students expressed gratitude for the opportunity, saying it could not have come at a better time as others had difficulties in completing their primary education. Nakuru County Governor, who flagged off the beneficiaries, however, urged the students to take advantage of the opportunity to make their lives a success.
Shukuru sana kwa sababu sikuwa na hope yoyote hata ya kumaliza standard 8, na wakati nilimaliza nikasikia mambo ya Equity na ikanifurahisha sana, nikatafuta nafasi na wakati waliniita nilifurahi sana na nina promise sitawaangusha. I work hard to be a lawyer.
Hapana, sikuwa naona, nilikuwa naona sasa nyumbani hatakuwa tunajiweza, kwa naona sasa siwezi enda shule. Sasa ndipo sasa nikafurahi nilipopata hiyo scholarship.
Unakumbuka last year mtihani wa KCPE hatukufanya vizuri. Ikabidi tuweke kamati ya kuangalia vile tunaweza kuimprove na kurekebisha standard ya masomo katika kaunti yetu. Ninashukuru kwa sababu tumeanza kupata matunda na matokeo nzuri. Mwaka huu tumeimprove sana.
Wings to Fly, a great initiative there that sees at least 1,000 students join secondary school. Let's go to Kakamega, where police in the county have launched a manhunt for a man who has allegedly been carrying out abortions for school girls and women in Furavia village. This is after they uncovered a hole filled with human skeletons in his compound. According to the suspect's father, Wilfred Lulani, his son has been running the business and the skeletons belong to girls who didn't survive the abortions. The area sub-chief Jackton Ambulwa suspects the man sold his land after burying the bodies to avoid being caught.
Parasa aliuza shamba, yeye alijua amefanya mambo hii ya kuua marehemu, sababu yeye aliuza shamba namna gani.
Hadi sasa ni miaka 2 sijampata huyo msichana, na siwezi sema huyu msichana wangu, lakini the suspect tu ya kwamba huenda msichana, maana mara ya mwisho kuonekana ama kusikika hako wapi ilikuwa kwa poma la huyu Rasa Lunani.
Katika harakati ile ya kupumbua tulikuwa na mlalamishi mmoja ambaye alitoka area ya Ngavira, ambaye alikuwa analalamika kwamba kuna siku moja mwaka 19 na 2013 kuna mtoto wake alitoweka nyumbani akiwa na mimba, alafu baadaye akasikia kwamba huyo mtoto alikuwa ameenda kwa mzee mmoja ambaye ni daktari wa kutoa mimba. Kuanzia hiyo siku hakuona mtoto wake, akalala siku 2, akaenda kuulizia huyo jamaa ambaye anaitwa Farasa Dunani, akamwambia ndio mtoto alikuwa, lakini alikuwa amemaliza shughuli na mtoto alikuwa ameenda kwao. Mzee akakaa mwezi mmoja, baadaye akarudi akilalamika kwamba mtoto hakuwa amefika nyumbani.
And welcome back to KTN Newsdesk. I'm Michael Karanja. Now, for those discerning investors, it's always important just to cast a crystal ball and just look at perhaps what are some of the stocks that would be likely to give you high returns. And in studio today, I'm joined by Dede Nyoro, who's the Executive Director for Investec Capital, just to help us get a clear view of what we should expect in 2015. Dede, if you're just to start, 2015, the first 2 weeks have been rather slow in terms of both volumes, share volumes, and also in terms of the money that is being generated at the NSE. Perhaps from where you see it as a broker, what's are these just the normal trends of January, just starting off on a slow pace and picking up as the year goes along?
Thank you very much, Michael, for having me. I think the sluggish trade in the stock market, especially in turnover, is basically because of the misconceptions that there are, especially in terms of capital gains tax. Interacting with most of my clients, I noticed that we need to do a lot of education in terms of making the clients understand or investors understand that the capital gains tax we're talking about, the 5%, is not on turnover, but on gains. So the sluggish trade is usually because of, and mostly because of the capital gains tax.
Yeah, but just looking at that capital gains tax, because it's not yet clear. So is these people just waiting to see whether there'll be clear directives coming from KRA on just how that will impact the investments and what they're able to win of gains from the capital markets?
I think most of the investors, even the elite, actually have not understood properly how they're going on, especially the calculations of the capital gains tax, because there are a lot of manual formulas to be involved. And there is no clear guideline, especially on the broker side, who should be collecting the tax on how they are going to prevent that. As of now, especially us as the players in the stock market, we are actually doing manual work, looking backwards in terms of how much the client paid in terms of buying the shares, the buying price, calculating what he made manually, actually attaching each and every form for every counter, especially when we are paying. So it's a lot of manual work. And of course, the systems that we use as the brokers has no provision for the collection of that tax.
Is that why perhaps there's been skepticism, especially since the first week of January, especially when it comes to who's going to collect this tax, how do you even calculate it into people's winnings?
Yeah, I agree with you, Michael. Especially there's been a back and forth between brokers and KRA, and I think each side is justified. The KRA needs tax, but the issue is how. And that's how there is a back and forth between the brokers. Because as of now, the systems we've been using as the brokers has not had any of that provision. And therefore, we have to resort to manual actually work that is too much, involving a lot of paperwork. Sometimes you are actually not sure whether you are accurate.
But you know, investors is never going to stop. So just looking at 2015, obviously slow start, but there are actually counters such as Safaricom and Barclays, which have been actually quite active. Just casting your crystal ball, perhaps, who are some likely to be key stocks to look at in 2015?
I think I want to start by saying that 2014, especially from 2013, has been very good years for investors. The stock market has been going up pretty well. But to be precise in terms of the stocks to watch, I think especially because of the news that came today regarding Centum and the go-ahead for the coal project. I think Centum will be one of the key stocks to watch. And of course, you'll be looking at Equity Bank because they have expansion strategies, which I'm sure will be some of them will be kicking off, especially this year. And of course, we'll be looking closely at the cement companies, the companies that are based in construction, because of the entry of Dangote, who will be entering our cement subsector this year. So we are about to see a lot of dynamics within those sectors and within those specific stocks.
If you just look at, I'm glad you mentioned Centum, just everything that they're doing from acquisitions during the year, likelihood of the coal power project coming online, and all the other kind of, just dealing and wheeling here and there.
Yeah.
When you look at it, how attractive does a stock like Centum become?
I think to me, in the investment sector, I think Centum has a very good strategy, mostly because of the management of the company, and especially the strategy of not paying dividends. Because being an investment company, they've had a strategy for the past policy for the past 5 years not to pay dividends, and they have lengthened that period to the next 5 years, and they'll be getting back the money to areas that are growth sectors. And of course, within Centum again, we'll closely be looking at how the case of Rea Vipigo comes up, because they've bid to buy the company and the other bidders. And of course, we will be looking at if the company takes over the deal. And I'm sure that will affect the stock and the company positively.
All right. Let's look at tomorrow, Wednesday the 14th. We're looking at MPC's meeting tomorrow. And also we expect to get new fuel prices from tomorrow. Just looking at MPC, for almost a year and a half now, they've maintained the CBR at about 8.5%. Is that likely to continue, or are you seeing some action there in terms of just spurring lower interest rates?
I think the CBK especially has been more keen in terms of taping inflation more than anything else. And that's why they have maintained that basis level. So I hope maybe if they actually add some points, it will be actually marginal, because I think their main aim is to tame inflation, and in terms of also maintaining our currency at a good level of strength.
All right. Thank you very much. That has been Dede Nyoro, the Executive Director for Investec Capital, just shedding some light on just likely stocks that are going to be successful in 2015 for investors who might be wanting to put in their money there, and just how people are waiting to see how the effects of the capital gains tax are going to affect.
And that story brings us to the end of this bulletin this afternoon. Well, you can tweet us at KTN Kenya and just tell us what is happening around you. We'd like to know that. My name is Ian Ofula. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.